Welcome back to episode 57 of Dice to Pixels. Let's roll initiative. We're talking TTRPGs today.
That sounds like fun.
That's all. I'm done. So I'll see you guys later.
Yeah, you're out of here. Yeah. So we haven't talked about TTRPGs in a while, and we need this episode to fill in for what is currently next week, which is 2 weeks after last week, because these guys are going on vacation, a little vacation for the long weekend.
Yeah, probably about the time this airs. I'm on a boat.
I'm on a boat.
Getting sunburned. Yay.
Well, you will be.
Yeah. So we thought, hey, let's chat about TTRPGs, and I asked in Discord if anybody had any topics in mind, and Temple of the Hut provided a couple, but one in particular was he just asked single shot versus campaign, and that's actually a really interesting question because they're very different. There's no answer between those two, obviously.
Oh, no.
Like I like both.
Yep.
But they're very different. How I play as a character, how I work as a DM. But my first question, Chad.
Yes.
Have you ever played a single shot?
Yes, you have.
Yeah, I have.
Okay. I wasn't sure because you're fairly new to TTRPGs.
Yeah, our friend Devin did the Halloween one shot.
That's right. I had forgotten that you were on board with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you played the fairy, your fairy.
Yeah, I played my my warlock fairy Amanase.
That's right. Yep.
He's a bit of an asshole. He talks kind of like this a lot, and he's just a bit of a smart ass. He likes pulling pranks on people, but in the end, he gets shit done. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you had some people's back.
I did.
So
I was usually riding on somebody's shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any thoughts to kick things off, Sarah? Or
I think they're both great. They both have their own place and function in terms of how you play. Like, I find with campaigns, you learn your character a lot more. But also, if you go in with so much idea of what a character is, then in some ways it might restrict you unless you're willing to allow that character to grow. Whereas with a one-shot, you can take a basic idea that you have for a character and just fucking go nuts and just see, is this a class I like to play? Is this the type of character I like to play? All that fun stuff.
Yeah. It's there's a handful of things that one shots definitely give you some room to play with. One of the big ones, and we'll get into it a little bit later because I think it's a bigger topic, and we've talked a little bit about it before. But character death is one of the big differences for a lot of people with one shots. But we'll talk a little bit more about that later. One of the things that I find with one shots particularly is they work well if you want to screw around with like alignment issues within the party.
Yeah.
So if you've got a party where it's like, you know what, we'd really like to have some proper turmoil and really like RP out like some legitimate fisticuffs within the party. That works really well as a one shot, maybe like a two shot.
Yeah.
You can do it in a campaign, and I have done it, and it's fun, but it takes a certain group of people to do that without building animosity at the table. Whereas with a single shot, it's just like, oh, you're trying to kill me? Well, I'll try and kill you too. And at the end of the night, we'll all shake hands and walk away because who cares?
Yeah.
So there's stuff like that where a lot of people are hesitant to get into that kind of stuff. Evil alignments is one of the things that a lot of people struggle with. And you can lean into that in a one shot in a big way, which is fun.
Nice little testing bed for classes or characters you might be on the fence about.
Yeah. Classes, characters, try them out is a great idea. Giving people a break in longer campaigns. Like if you've been slogging for a while and you're at like level 8 or 9, throwing them in a one shot, the same group, but throwing them in with slightly different characters, or just like fast forwarding their characters for a one shot to like level 15 or something, just to give them that sort of like, here's what we're grinding for.
Yeah.
That's always a nice thing to do every now and then. You were going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say, I know we've discussed previously, in terms of alignment, it is very subjective as to like what constitutes an evil character or not. So like the so-called evil character might not view themselves as evil.
Yes.
So, but yeah, that's kind of an aside to what we're currently discussing.
Well, it is, and to some degree it isn't. I mean, a lot of people don't go down those paths specifically because of that sort of, you know, yes, I'm going to murder every goblin I come across and, like, you know, rip out their entrails, but that's not something that I want to negatively impact my character in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
But if you give me an opportunity to do it for a night and play around with the fun of it, then I'm
Yeah.
totally going to do it.
Yeah.
So it does give people that freedom to flex a little bit into the darker side of characters. We did have a discussion. I don't know the episode number off the top of my head.
No.
But we did have a discussion long ago about alignments, and I think it was a good discussion. If you're interested, I can see about leaving a link in the description.
Yeah, we also tried and failed miserably at doing our evil campaign.
We
Well, I
didn't-
wouldn't say failed miserably, but I think we just needed more people at the table.
Yeah, it was a little slow. Like, we had fun.
Yeah.
It didn't come across well on film.
Yes.
Yeah. We're gonna play around with that, especially with the new setup that I've got mostly working. Actually, we'll play again at some point, and I think it'll be a little bit quicker, like a little bit better pacing, and also I'll have the opportunity of bringing in random guest spots as the DM, which I think should be interesting. I can bring in NPCs. And we're back. We had some cat issues going on. Yeah. So, you said episode 29?
Yeah, the episode 29, we had an episode, just some advice for D&D newbies like me.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It was a sort of a general chatting about stuff that people run into.
Yep.
But yeah, so that's on the one shot side. Sort of the ability to flex and do stuff that you're not interested in doing with your main character. I mean, I see this all the time. Like, people with MMORPGs, like World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
They roll in alts because they want to experience something else. And I think you have to do the same thing with TTRPGs.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
You can't just play the same character forever.
Some people can.
Some people can and insist on it.
That too.
But most people can't.
Yes.
And don't want to.
No.
Which is actually, I mean, again, I don't want to jump into it too early in any big way, but that's actually one of the reasons I advocate for character death is because I think it gives you that opportunity to change it up.
If you change it up.
Yes. If you
obviously, yes, there are some people that only ever play the same character over
the same
and over.
trope.
just reskinned again and again.
Which, incidentally,
sorry,
if you find yourself doing that, maybe you should partake in some one-offs and just play a different character and find out that, hey, they can be fun too.
Or get someone to make a new character for you.
Yeah, well, so I actually, with one-offs, I almost always do, it depends on the group, but I almost always do, I'll generate characters.
Oh.
Here they are. You guys fight between them and pick one.
I've never done that before. That
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, we should do that then.
Yeah.
I'll put one together.
I mean, it's kind of similar to how we picked characters for Madara.
Yeah.
You know, like we just, it was just like a fucking, like, shuffle. There.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I almost always provide characters for the one shot because the whole idea of a one shot, to me, there are one shots that you like add as like an interlude in a campaign that have specific purposes. But in general, a one shot is just like, this should be low barrier for everybody, but
it's
presumably
like a board
the
game
DM
night, basically.
Exactly. So I don't want to like everybody come to the table with a character and blah blah blah, because some people can just whip a character up in 5 minutes. I've certainly done that in the past, and then it proceeded for like a year and a half. But some people really struggle with that. They want the time to really flesh it out, and I find that if you just like, no, here are your characters, you know, pick one and roll with it. It kind of cures that overthinking a bit.
Yeah, I think that was one of my problems. The first character I made was Oscuro, my dark elf. Um, and he was very just blah, like kind of monotone, um, because he like the character had basically a life of solitude, and just it was very mundane to me. He was very mundane. It wasn't until I made some of my other characters like Amanase
Mm-hmm.
where I could incorporate some of my like dumb shit, like my voices, and just how be a little bit more charismatic with it and stuff like that. I kind of preferred that.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I will say that in your case, having been witness to that game,
Mhm.
the fact that Oscuro was a little bland had way less to do with you and the character, and way more to do with the fact that you were all so heavily on rails.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
true.
There was no
I was
room
gonna
for
say.
anybody to actually like experience that game. So,
Yeah.
Mhm.
which is something that you do run the risk of with a one shot, incidentally. And that wasn't a one shot,
No,
but
no, no.
that is something that's very hard to balance as a DM with a one shot. And sometimes you don't even bother. Sometimes you're just like, yeah, you're on rails. This is exactly what we're doing tonight. And this is basically a combat slog. And that can be fine.
But I think if you go in and you tell that to your group,
It's fine.
that's totally different.
Yeah.
If people go in with that mindset, then they're like, yeah, fine, that's no problem.
Yeah.
Or if you're not telling your players what you're expecting, then it's not going to be fun for everyone because you're butting heads against each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Never let your players expect like an RP game and deliver a combat game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a cardinal sin as a GM, and vice versa to a large extent.
Well, so I kind of liked when we did Avernus, and you and I we talked about how our two characters are going to be. Like I was like hired by your old man character, my Dragonborn Klurock and Phineas.
Yeah.
I was hired by you to escort you to the town so you could see your nephew Dorn, and we kept going back and forth. Like we would banter back and forth, like
That was a strong group. I
Yeah.
enjoyed that group.
Yeah.
a lot.
That was
And
fantastic.
It was nice because like we had a lot of interactions like that, just stupid shit, and yeah, I dug that.
No, it was great. That was a fun game, and it was a strong group. Really enjoyed it.
Mhm.
As a DM, if you're trying to prepare a role playing one shot, you gotta lean heavily on false choices.
Yeah.
You've
Yeah.
got to give them the illusion of choice and then send them down the path you expected anyways.
Mm.
You want to make it feel like they're making the decisions,
Mhm.
but you can't let them make too many decisions because your one shot that's supposed to be 4 hours will turn into 4 days.
But if you're a good GM, it shouldn't be hard to do that, I think.
Yeah, well, so you have to be experienced enough to let it go.
Mhm.
And that's true of campaigns as well, but I find that especially true with one-offs. And you also have to be acceptable. You also have to consider it acceptable if you're doing an RP one-off.
Yes.
If it's a combat slog, you can just do the combat slog.
Yeah.
If you're doing an RP one shot, you have to have failure as an acceptable outcome.
Yeah.
And that can mean a few different things.
Yeah.
The community, the revisit to Dungeons and Dragons in the community show.
Yes.
I don't know. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was pulled from the air because of the drow. They don't you can't get that on streaming or anything anymore.
What?
Well, because Ben Chang he was basically blackface because he was doing the drow.
Yes, I forgot about that.
So you can't get that on streaming or anything anymore. But
that was a good episode.
It was, and like it. We won't get into that, but anyways, we have it on DVD or whatever, or so I rewatched it not that long ago, and the game ends with Abed.
Mhm.
Basically, they've been standing outside of the wizard's keep for hours arguing.
Yep.
And he just takes off out the back door. And Abed's like, well, yeah, if you stand in front of somebody's door arguing about how you're going to kill them for an hour, they'll leave.
Yeah.
And it's like, that might be deeply unsatisfying in one way, but at the same time, it's like, yeah. You got to be okay with that.
Yeah.
For a one shot, that has to be an outcome.
Yep.
So And I think that's a valuable lesson for DMs where
Well,
it's
even
like,
even for a normal campaign, that needs to be an acceptable outcome for if you're fucking around.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. It needs to always be an acceptable outcome, but in one shots, it like has to be an acceptable outcome.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yep.
And I think as a player, that's in some ways more rewarding
Yeah.
to find out that like, oh, hey, this world doesn't just exist for my personal, like, edification.
Mm-hmm.
This is like,
It's
it
a
has
dynamic world.
legs of its own.
Yeah, it's dynamic.
People do things that make sense that I don't directly involve myself in, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's the direct opposite, because you used the example of World of Warcraft, where you go to talk to someone, you go to talk to, say, Thrall or any other leader, and they're like, "Oh, hero, you saved the city or whatever."
For Doomhammer!
And then the next person comes up and it's, "Oh, adventurer, you saved the city." It's
That's
like,
right.
but I did that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I already claimed that.
Yeah. I was gonna say,
Fuck this guy. I was here first.
yeah,
Right?
I was gonna say to you, Chad, too, with Amanase, with that particular setting that we were playing in, I don't think he was given the opportunity to really bloom as a character.
You mean Oscuro?
Oh yeah, not Amanase, sorry. Oscuro.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I had plans, but
Yeah. I think I think he's a worthwhile character to revisit again, just in a different
for sure.
group.
But I think with D&D, I had more fun with Amanase. The one character I tried to do too for the Evil campaign where he was like schizophrenic.
Yeah, I still want to.
I want to explore that.
Yeah, I want to do more with that.
Yeah.
Because I have another idea along those lines.
Yeah. I think we'll continue with that and do some more of that campaign. We'll bring in a few extra people, so we've got more at the table.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we'll use it as a test bed for filming. We'll try out the new setup and use it as a test bed, because I was enjoying DMing it, and I know you guys were generally enjoying playing it.
Fucking map was rolling. That was wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only problem that we were having really was that everybody kind of felt like we needed to like pace it for footage, and that didn't really end up working.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we just need to just play and
just
see
play
where it
like
takes
normal
us.
and see what happens.
Yeah, and if we get usable footage, cool, and if we don't, we don't.
Yeah. Well, even whatever footage we do end up with, we don't need to show the entire thing.
No, we can drop it on.
It can just condense the story down into something shorter.
We can edit it down, and we can also just drop the raw files on Discord.
Exactly.
Let you sift through it. But
so you've asked us questions. Is there any particular campaign or one shot that you've ever played or DM that you've especially enjoyed?
So the one shots that I enjoy most, it's not really about the story, it's just about the players.
Yeah.
The ones that I've actually enjoyed most are the completely unprepared ones, where there's been 2 or 3 occasions where I'll head over to somebody's house, and we're nominally going to play some board games or something, but we haven't really figured stuff out. And I'll always offer, I'm always, if people want, we can play D&D. Give me 10 minutes. I'll come up with a quick story and I'll ad lib the thing and it'll be fine. And we've actually chosen that option a few times. And those are always my favorite because nobody at the table knows where it's going, including me. It's basically like some of the one sheet stories like Lasers and Feelings,
yeah,
except with the full D&D rule set, sort of, kind of.
That was a fun game.
Yeah, Lasers and Feeling is great, right?
Yeah.
We did that one game with a few people live. Actually, John was there.
Yeah. It was a little rough because it was the first time we had done like a remote thing, but it was fun.
That was so fun, especially when Newell betrayed us all because he had to leave.
Launched missiles at us and then just walked out. So there's been a few of those, and those are typically the one-offs that I find are most engaging, because if I don't even have a story, like I think there's always a level of trepidation with the players of like not wanting to fuck with the DM's story too much. And like I've told all of my players many times, like I'm making up half the shit, at best half the shit, probably more than that anyways. So you're not ruining my story. But when I come to the table with literally no preparation other than like, give me 10 minutes to come up with a general story arc, then they don't feel bad about breaking anything because they're like, well, you didn't spend any time on this, so I don't care if I completely screw it up. And I think that just adds a lot of freedom to the table all around. And those have been some of the best one-offs that I've ever experienced as a DM. And I think that they've been the most rewarding for the players as well. Now, not everybody can just ad-lib an entire night of D&D just off the top of their head.
But you can.
I can. And honestly, it's a skill that you get better at the more you try.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is that something that you had to kind of develop?
I mean,
I've always
been quick on my feet, but there's a certain amount of sort of mental shorthand that you develop that it helps to write some things down as you go, obviously. But there's a bit of mental shorthand that you kind of develop when you're doing it, where it's like you learn what details players care about being correct and what they don't. Like if a NPC's name changes from the first 10 minutes of the game to the last 10 minutes of the game, nobody's going to notice. Like if you go back to the town and the blacksmith and I forget what I named him and I just give you a different name, 99% of your players are never going to notice.
I'm that 1%.
You might. In which case I'll just be like, change your name. It's fine.
I think his name was Morrow. He just said his name was Mitch.
And you also have to be willing to just say like, oh yeah, you're right. Actually, I fucked up. Like, because it's not a big deal. But you get to know the things that matter and you kind of like commit those to memory or write them down. It's harder to do an entire session without having anything to write on. I have done that, but it is difficult. You get better at it. It's definitely a practice thing. I've always been good at memory and I've always been good at thinking on my feet. So generally speaking, I'm well suited to it, but it's absolutely something that gets better as you do it. And honestly, the biggest part of improvising D&D is just getting over the nervousness of improvising D&D. The players don't know.
Yeah, no,
the players never know.
No. You don't have to be Matt Mercer.
No. And like the number of times that people have talked to me after a game and been like, oh, this was such a good part. I can't believe that you came up with that, and it just happened to fit in really well. And I'm like, I did come up with that, but it's not like I had that ahead of time.
Yeah.
You said that. And then I thought, oh, hey, we should do this later. And then the opportunity presented itself. And so we threw it in. And those are the best moments in a lot of cases because the players are like, oh my God, it happened.
Yeah.
I was hoping it might.
Well, that's like DMs that talk about putting in puzzles and then their players are like doing crazy shit and they're like, this is even better than the answer than I have.
Absolutely. So. It's like, oh yeah, no, you guys have a way better solution. That's definitely the way it works. I'm so clever. That's how it worked from the beginning.
You approach a door. I'll check the door. The door's locked. Damn it. There must be some way to open this door, and it's actually just stuck.
It's just got a name tag that says locked.
The door's locked.
Well, like the game when we were playing Avernus, it was Avernus, I'm pretty sure, and Devin was I was going around tapping on the walls, and Devin just kept on feeding me secret tunnels and stuff. And he's like, none of those existed. I'm like, yeah, but it kept the game moving, so it's all good.
Well, he needed that because you were doing the only one keeping the game.
Yeah,
moving
well, somebody had to do
around
something.
Too much.
It was one of those situations, and this goes back to like as a player, some people need the freedom of a one shot to really kind of goof off a bit. But like as a player, I didn't want to break character and like take over the group because it's like that's not what my character would have done.
No.
But wander around tapping on doors or walls to find that he would totally do that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's like, here, Devin, here's something you can do. And if they dick around long enough, you can just feed me the correct tunnel, which I think is literally what ended up happening.
Yeah.
I like that there was like that silliness though.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean.
You gotta have some.
Yeah, like because it wasn't all like super serious all the time. It's like okay, well, I mean, we're gonna have fun. We want to have fun,
Yeah, and I think that's also something that, especially with a one shot, like with a campaign, you have to have fun and you have to have comedy. And you have to, you have to.
Yeah.
with a one shot, there is room for doing like a solemn, sort of sobering one shot. But everybody's got to go. It's like you were saying before, you got to know that's what you're getting into.
Yes.
And you got to know before you start. Because otherwise you start with like the guy who's going to do stupid shit and then you end up getting screwed over. Like my, when we did the live show the one day and, I was like, I'm just following them in, like, right. I'm just walking in behind them. He's like, you're going to die. It's like, yep, no, I'm just walking in. It's fine.
Was that the one where you guys had the Southern accents and you kept touching swords
was
over
it
my
that
head?
one?
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
I thought you were talking about the one where I played Capo. That's the one where you were following them.
No, because
that one I did something stupid too. But no, I was talking about when one of us was Rudy and the other one was.
Oh yeah, that was the business partners.
Yeah, because I was the one, like, you guys were joking around and I was the one that kept pushing everything going forward, and I went through the door where there was giants and you were just like, I'm gonna follow her in.
Rock on.
Because we got blown up.
Yeah.
We got blown up.
I think did we all die there?
Heat metal on the grenade. Yeah. I heat metal on grenade. And like shit like that. Like obviously if you're having a lighthearted one-off, great. If you're having a campaign, I'm not going to risk toasting the entire party for some fun. Mm-hmm. If you're having a solemn one-off, I'm not going to be a dick.
No.
But as long as everybody knows what you're getting into, and in this case, we were doing a live show that was basically a stand-up show, but like stand-up comedy, except we were sitting down and we were playing TTRPG. But so in that case, like that was the right move.
Yes.
But you got to know what you're getting into.
Exactly.
And that was another example of where we talked beforehand and we had a plan of what we were going to do with our two characters.
I love those characters. We should resurrect
oh my
them.
God, I want to do my original idea too, where it was like you guys were business partners, but you were fighting, and then I was the
marriage counselor. Oh yeah, no, there's fun to be had there.
That was hilarious.
But yeah, like that. I think that's the key, and that's where one-offs give you a lot of freedom as players and as DMs. Mm-hmm. To try something new. You want to try a super serious night of D&D? Great, do it as a one-off. Don't try and too many DMs try to force their players into something that they're not prepared for.
Yeah.
They're like, we're gonna be in the graveyard and we're gonna do this whole thing. And it's like, but last week we were dicking around like pitting the blacksmith against the shopkeep in like we were trying to make them fight. Like, how do we go from that to like a super serious dungeon crawl? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Well, I think that's also just person's expectations too. Whereas like sometimes players go in with the expectation of, this is going to be super serious this way, and the DM's just like, no, we're going to do this instead today. So
for sure, like you have to. That's the one thing you got to have communication. I'm a fan of surprising players in every way I possibly can, except tone and like broad subject matter.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to be doing a combat, I'm going to let you know you're doing a combat because you got to come into that prepared for a grind. Mm-hmm. And if I'm expecting people to take something seriously, I'm going to let you know that I'm like, this is going to be a serious one-off or session or whatever, which I very rarely do with D&D because that's, I don't know, it doesn't feel as fun to me, but it can be. But those are the two things. You don't want to surprise your players with tone, and you don't want to surprise your players that are expecting a night of role play with combat slog. Don't do it.
Let it all play out. Especially like the role play stuff, I find more appealing than, the rules lawyering and all that shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, so this is the classic problem with D&D and TTRPGs in general. If the table is not aligned to the amount of detail. So Temple also asked in Discord, like, how crunchy do you like your systems? And for me, whatever. I am happy to play with like very little attention paid to the rules and let people get away with fucking just breaking all kinds of mechanics. Or I'm happy to, as a player or a DM, get into the nitty gritty and like fire up spreadsheets and do all the things. but everybody's got to be aligned.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got one person that's expecting you to like deal with encumbrance and swim speeds and like strength checks to do like pushes and stuff like that, like not pushes in combat, but like basic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got, 3 other people at the table that don't even know how the fuck those rules work, you're going to have a bad night.
Yeah.
Especially if one of those people is the DM.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like I like both, but only with a party that likes both.
Mm-hmm.
And or whichever one we're doing. And I have never met enough people to make a party, enough people that I like at least to make a party of like crunchy players.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it has to be fun. Like, I mean, that would kind of, I don't know, that would annoy me, I think, if it got to that.
I don't think you would do well with it.
No,
No,
I would probably get pretty pissed off because it takes away from.
It's slow.
Yeah, and combat slows shit down enough as it is. So.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, like you take a game that like if you are crunching, if you're number crunching, you are not role playing. I mean, there are people that would be like, fuck you for saying that, but like that's pretty true at the end of the day. If you're playing super rules heavy, there's still absolutely role playing elements, but what you're really doing is mathing, which I'm fine with.
Yeah.
The Witcher system was like that. Like,
yeah,
we didn't do near as much as the rules dictated for that,
but it could be super crunchy.
Holy,
yeah.
For what we did, I mean,
it was already pretty crunchy.
Yeah. I think we turned that more into role playing rather than actually playing. I think the setting as it was meant to, or the system as it was meant to.
If you're trying to do a live stream, crunchy games are not your friend.
No.
There's a small section of the population that would be on board with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I like both. I would absolutely play a game of like 4th edition, break out the spreadsheets and rock on sort of stuff. But most people wouldn't.
No.
And because of that, I don't. Because sample, 100 D&D players, I'm going to say 95% of them are going to say, I prefer on the rules light side of things. Yeah. So that's what you do, right? Yep. Like that's what you're going to play. If you have a group that likes crunchy, awesome. I would love to someday come up with a group that really enjoys like, we're going to play for 12 hours today and we're going to get one combat done because we're going to do the whole fucking shebang and we're going to do Witcher with all the stupid checks and everything else because, whether my enemy is facing the sun will give me the upper hand in this. Yep. Like, I think there's something to that. I think that could be fun.
I think it'd be interesting to at least give it a shot.
Yeah.
Just to see what it is like, because I think it could be interesting.
Yeah.
Again, with the right people.
Exactly.
Like, because it's not just what's happening in the game. It's the cross table talk when it's appropriate and just, like huddling together and giggling and waiting for your turn. Like it's the entire experience.
You need a group of people that don't pull out their phone every 5 minutes if you're going to do that.
Yes.
And those are hard to come by these days. But yeah, no, I that's exactly it. Like it'd be fun to try. I think there's something there that could be fun.
Yeah.
But I can't think of a good analogy for it, but it's one of those things where I think to get the fun, you have to go 100%.
Yeah.
And if you go 95%, you're going to get none of the fun and all of the hassle.
Well, with the one group that we played with Brody as the DM, we had the critical hit table.
Yeah.
And that really changed things because he started using that before we had been streaming one of the previous groups. And I find when you roll on the critical hit table and there is like those extra consequences, that is so much more exciting for that. So that extra bit of crunch in there, it can be immersive in that respect.
Yeah, and I respect the Witcher system for trying to come up with like, you know what? I'm putting myself in a position that should grant me a tangible benefit over my enemy. And instead of leaving it up to the DM to be like, okay, you can have advantage for that, it's like, no, that's a +2.
Yeah.
the amount of fucking people that died of septic shock.
Yeah, it's like Oregon
my
Trail, the
God.
RPG.
Like every time because we were rolling crits like fucking fiends in that during that, and the amount of times we rolled fucking the enemy got septic shock.
I'd forgotten about that.
I think the one guy
Yeah.
got it twice, didn't
Yes.
he?
Yeah, you have died of dysentery.
Fuck.
Yeah, no, that was pretty wild. But that brings up the other thing, which I wasn't actually going to talk about, and I'm not going to talk much about it because I think there's actually another episode in there. But D10 systems can go fuck themselves.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you because you had said that D6 and D10 systems are not your favorite.
D6 is like, you kind of accept that it's not a serious system going into it, so it's kind of like, okay, that's fine. But like D10, nah, yeah, it can go fuck itself. There's
Yeah.
not enough randomness. You know, you're rolling either a 1 or a 10 20% of the time instead of 10% of the time, and even 10% of the time is kind of too much. I'd love to play a D30, but there comes a point where they just don't roll properly.
Yeah.
So D20 is kind of the perfect max,
Unless you're using an RNG machine of some sort.
or a card deck of cards, which
Yeah.
actually is something that I would be interested in trying at some point. Is just like they do.
I have actually a bunch of solo RPGs that utilize decks of cards
for sort of AI decision making.
Yeah.
The other thing is you can just get roll decks, and they're ostensibly D20s in card form, except that they usually come with 2 or 3 sets in a deck. And what you can do is, if you want less extremes, you can just take out some of those numbers. So you want to have less crits and crit misses. You just take 2 out of the 3 of each of them out, and then it's a very rare event. So like there's simple ways to deal with that. And like confirming a crit back in the old days was how they kind of made crits really rare. But D20 is a good mix. D10, not enough. There's not enough randomness on a D10.
I have one little campaign book at home. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but it's basically described as Stitch Punk. And it's the setting is like if you took Wally and Sid's toys from Toy Story and mashed them together.
Yeah, you were telling me about this.
And so it uses a D6 system, and it's based off of another one that I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but it's whether like basically with the sixes or with your rolls, all you find out is if you critical failed, you succeeded, but there's issues as well, or if it just fully succeeded. So I think something like that, and I've heard podcasts using it before. I think that lends itself well to role playing in itself.
Yes.
Where you're allowed a lot more play. So if you have a group that is more interested in that type of role playing, a setting, whatever it may be, using that type of system, I think probably is better for that particular thing.
Yeah, and I should probably clarify a little bit what I said earlier, because I rather flippantly said that if it's a D6 system that it's not a serious system. I mostly mean that in terms of it's not designed to do combat and role play well. That doesn't mean you can't, like Laser and Feelings. Combat in Laser and Feelings is a joke, but the role play is there.
Yeah.
You can have a ton of fun.
Yeah.
That's what I meant. Not that they're like inherently bad systems, because they're not. They can be lots of fun, but they are not deep systems. You will struggle to have a deep system with a D6.
Yeah. Like Blades in the Dark, sorry. System uses a D6 system as well, and that's currently what the Adventure Zone podcast is using for theirs.
Yeah.
But they have always played a more role-playing heavy game.
And I think for film stuff and for podcasty type stuff, like anything with an audience, I honestly think the D6 probably works well, because the truth is, the audience doesn't care that you narrowly missed a hit. They want to see misses, and they want to see like misses.
Yeah.
And they want to see hits, and that's it. They don't care about the rest of the shit. And some players feel that way too.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
What about you, Chad? What are you thinking?
Oh, well, no, I'm just listening.
Well, what's
What do you want out of a game?
yeah, what would you want to do if okay, let's put it this way. If I told you starting next week we're going to do a campaign.
I would tell you we can't because we're not going to be here.
Shut up, you.
I knew that was going to be the answer.
And we're out. Okay, no. So if I said week after next,
Ah,
we're going to start a campaign.
sure.
Or I said we're going to do a one-off or a series of one-offs. What would you want to do? Would you want to play around with characters? And
I'd
try a few
create
different
something.
things, or
I'd create something.
would you want to create like a couple different ones to do some one-offs, or do you want to like get into the meat and potatoes?
No, I'd create a character just to I want to try and play as like each class, and I haven't played as like a wizard or a druid or cleric.
Yeah, you haven't touched magic users
Yeah, a
too
lot of
much
the
other
well,
than
the sorcerer, and I played.
Oh, yeah,
I played a sorcerer. The Sarah's character Peanut, I played her husband.
Yeah.
Stroganoff. Yeah.
Forgotten about that too.
Had to make him talk like this because she's always going off adventuring and spending all the money, so I have to go and get my own money to pay for the house.
That's right.
But no, like I would try something try something else. Sometimes I'll get like a random idea in my head, like the guy that was basically monotone but possessed by a demon that basically inhabited his hand and
yeah,
could take over the body at any given time. Shit like that.
We're gonna revisit those characters for sure.
I messed around with that, and like I've had a few other ideas that I want to try, but I would always want to go into creating a new character, and if I can't, then I'm not opposed to playing a couple of the fun ones that I've done.
Yeah,
You know,
I like to create new characters. That's one of the things I find fun. None of this really matters because we're not going to be playing D&D when we play next anyways. We're going to try a new system.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, there's so many different systems to try too.
Yeah. We're not going to play D&D. We're going to play something else. But whatever we play, it'll be interesting to I think we'll start with a one-off.
Might as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, actually, I think we'll start with doing some more of the evil campaign to test out the setup because we already know what we're doing with that.
Yeah.
And then we'll get into to probably some one-offs of some other. I'd love to do like a string of one-offs of different systems.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing too. Because like I know even at home I have the Stitch Punk one I was talking about. I have another one I kickstarted a while ago called Goblins.
Yeah.
Goblins. I can't say it right. But it's baby goblins.
Yeah.
There we go. Goblins.
Goblins, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember you telling us about that.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Oh, sorry.
Well,
I'll talk
cocaine's a
louder.
hell of a drug.
I must have had my ears turned off.
That's right.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's what we'll do next is the Dice to Pixels crew will play some one-offs, which by the way, we will be having because of the remote setup. Like that's the whole goal here is to allow for remote players as well. There will be some openings for the community as well.
Mm-hmm.
I already have a few people that want slots, so we'll definitely bring some people
Only
in.
to those people that have linked their D2P ID with YouTube. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah. So if you want to be part of that and you're not already, jump on Discord or potentially just leave a message, leave a comment. But Discord's the better way to go for that. But yeah, I don't know. The one thing I still have never actually successfully done, and we're gonna have to do it, and I think it's gonna be the evil campaign. We'll get there. I have never taken a campaign all the way to level 20.
Never been that far either. I think the highest I've been is level 12.
Yeah, we gotta do it.
Yeah.
I've gotten up there, but I've never gone all the way to 20, and we gotta do it. Gotta do it.
Yep.
That's like on my D&D bucket list.
That's long haul, man.
It is. It's
That's
very
long
long haul.
Mhm.
But I mean,
I mean, I don't care. I do.
We've been doing this for a year. We just
Yeah.
need to start
Yeah.
actually playing D&D too.
Yeah.
There's some great settings too that I know Brody has found for 20 like level 20 campaigns
Yeah.
that are like dragons on moons and stuff.
Oh,
And I'm
yeah.
just like, oh my god, this sounds so cool.
You can get in some weird shit at level 20.
Just give it to me. I want all the weird stories.
Yeah.
I am God.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, you can literally get into like, I'm going to the gods plane to fight for now.
I am the gods.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go slap Vecna with his own hand.
That's right. Yeah, that's the other thing. I've never actually DM'd a
built
proper campaign.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll do that sometime too. I'll do that with one of the other games that we're playing though.
Yeah.
Not D&D. Because
yeah.
you know what? Fuck wizards.
But I think
like
that's
wizards,
the problem though. When we were talking about player agency and being set on rails,
100%.
is like modules are nice and campaign settings like whatever like D&D puts out or Wizards puts out are all nice to give you, but there is a set path that they kind of, it's like what comes in when we were talking about last week for you guys about video games and not having agency to go off and do weird things. Like they do want you to go to this certain area.
Yeah. Well, and it's, for me, it's just one of those things, like, you're exactly right. And the thing is, like, if you're going to be the kind of DM that I at least strive to be, where you let your players do what they want to do, then you have to be ready for them to piss off and do other stuff anyways.
Yeah.
And at that point, are you really getting anything from the book anymore?
Exactly.
Ideas maybe, but like...
Yeah, that's all I would use it for, or like a starting point or something.
And I've definitely read through campaign books. I've
Mm-hmm.
just never actually ran one.
Yeah.
And I don't think I have any desire to. Not for wizard stuff. There's too much of it and it's too narrow. But for some of the other, like for the one shot, like I'm sure some of those other systems have like recommended one shots.
Yeah.
We'll definitely, I'll run one of those. Or you guys can. I don't know who will be DMing those, but
that was something we brought
can all
up.
try.
We'll take
that
turns.
was something we brought up before about like your own doing a homebrew or a set thing, and I think we all unanimously said like a homebrew campaign is just
for me there's just no contest.
Yeah.
And you can't fucking cheat by looking ahead in the book.
No, I mean that's a thing, right? Directed at no one in particular.
No.
Because
I mean, I know we fucking.
Yeah, no, I mean, and also just like you don't have to worry about if somebody's read it previously or done it previously or anything else.
But that's the big thing too, because like I always hear a lot of people say like Ravenloft and how good, or not Ravenloft. Is it Ravenloft or what's the Von Rickens? What's the vampire one in?
Yeah, it's Ravenloft.
Ravenloft. I've heard a ton of people just say how good that campaign is, and so I've never run it. I've never read the book,
it's too long.
But again, because like everybody's done it, and I'm still a relative newbie, like.
It's too long for a pre-gen campaign. I can't slog through that much of somebody else's narrative for D&D.
No.
I would feel like I'm not even, like, there's just no point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Personally.
Well, and the thing is too, like with places like Drive Through RPG and GM Guild or whatever it's called online, there's so many one-shots and ideas for campaigns on there. You don't need to limit yourself to Wizards official stuff.
No.
There's more unique and probably more interesting things that you can tap into. So
yeah, and we've talked about it before, and one of the biggest problems that I think we all have with Wizards stuff specifically is there's too much history. Like if you want to get into the Sword Coast, you'd better fucking know the Sword Coast. And I don't know the Sword Coast. I know a little of the Sword Coast. I don't know it anywhere near well enough to run a legitimate game in it. And if I'm going to spend the time to learn it, I'd rather build my own shit.
Yep.
So,
yippers.
With different systems where none of us have any experience with it and everything else, then I think that's a a different ball game. Everybody comes in on equal footing,
Mhm.
and yeah. But in general, for all of us, I think homebrew is the way to go.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, if you're new to it, I guess campaigns are great, and some people probably just prefer them. But for me, I'd rather put the time and effort into making something.
Yeah, because like with some people, if everyone is working a full-time job and they're not able or don't feel they have the time to put towards writing their own campaign the way that they want, I think the pre-generated ones are great for that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and I think also for DMs that aren't comfortable with just winging it,
yes,
it makes a big difference. Because
Yep.
if you're trying to homebrew, if you're trying to prepare an entire homebrew game, that takes days
Mhm.
to properly prepare a game.
Yeah.
If you're just winging 80% of it like I do, then it takes a few hours
Mhm.
max to prep for a game.
Yeah.
So there's a different work. Like for me, it's less work to just do my own thing than to read through a campaign book in its entirety.
Yeah.
But some people have a real. I refuse to believe that they're incapable of it, but they feel that they're incapable
Yeah.
of just winging a game.
That's the way I felt in the past because I started running one of the Wizards official books.
Witchlight.
Yeah,
I
thank
was
you,
going to say,
Witchlight.
yeah.
And I never felt like I was prepared enough. Like I was taking notes
Yeah.
and reading through everything, and I was like so worried that I'm not going to do this story justice. We're not going to get to where we need to be to tell
And then
more
the
of the
stove
story.
lit on fire.
Yeah, and it was the chaos. The house was on fire.
Fucking toast was burnt.
Yep. Poor cats running around screaming.
I had to shoot them. I didn't actually shoot them.
Well, you didn't have to. You still did. You just didn't
With a
have to.
Nerf gun. No, I didn't do that either.
But thinking about it now, like I feel I know I don't know everything.
Yeah.
And people I play with know that I don't know everything. But they don't care. They just
I
want to have
shit
fun.
my pants.
So I would just go in at this point being like, okay, we're going to kind of do this, I guess, and like I'll see what happens type thing. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to get over being afraid to admit that you were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like just like, oh yeah, no, my bad. You did actually do that previously, and I forgot. That's no worries.
Yeah.
Let's just and you got to be willing to just roll with it and
Shit your pants.
and shit. You know,
And shit your pants.
Just for the record, it's really confusing to the audience when you continue dinner conversations. But yeah, no. I think most people just need the freedom to try it, and I think one-offs are a great way to do that. Because I'll tell you right now, if you're worried about it and you've never tried just winging a session, do your normal prep. Do a one-off, like grab a one-off, whatever. Get ready to run it, and then just don't start.
Or
Don't
shit your pants.
Or shit your pants. Don't start that. Start winging it. Just start your own thing. And if you get into trouble, just sort of massage the party back into the one-off and continue from there. Because then you've got your safety net. And I think that's what people get worried about is that they don't have a safety net.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, there are times that I've been DMing and I have absolutely nothing prepared, and I'm starting to sweat it a little bit because the party looks like they're about to ask me for some like legitimately confusing or interesting, and I'm gonna have to make something up on the spot and hope I don't regret it. But then somebody does something stupid and it's all fine. It's never failed. I've never been caught out with like I have no idea what to do next because somebody always does something stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, sorry. Just
Looking at the ceiling.
Chad's seeing ghosts.
I shit my pants.
All right, I have one last
This has
question.
got to be up there for the number of YouTube videos that have just random I shit my pants in.
Okay, it was a question I kind of brought up before when we were coming up with this discussion ideas.
Yeah.
Do you think specific settings require specific systems, or do you think basically any setting that you could play in should or is system agnostic?
I think that any combat heavy scenario requires a D20 system.
Mm-hmm.
D10s are okay. but they're not as good. The Witcher may work if you really lean into the rules of it, but that would just be punishing.
If you're playing a
Um,
Witcher,
Yeah,
Mm.
right. Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing else worth playing anyway.
Pretty
No,
much,
there
yeah.
really isn't.
So like for combat heavy stuff, I think you need a well-rounded sort of D20 system. Other than that, no. Fuck it. I can put you into any scenario with any rule set and be happy with it. I can pretty much guarantee from a role-playing perspective. Like skill checks and all that, I can make anything work. Combat, I don't think a like grindy combat like a dungeon crawl would be at all fun in most D6 systems. I could
Yeah.
be wrong. I don't know that I've ever tried it. We'll have to try it someday to find out.
I think it depends on how you approach combat too, because if you take it more as like a descriptive role playing type thing versus like the action of if I actually punch the guy in the face, how much damage does that punch do?
Yeah, I think that would just get very dull after the first little bit. Like
Mhm.
if it's all just sort of like, cool, you win. How do you win? Like just every time, or like,
Yeah.
oh, they win. How do you lose? I think that would get really dull really fast. It's great for keeping things moving,
Mm-hmm.
but if you're legitimate, like, no, you're going to break into the enemy stronghold and you're going to fight through like multiple layers of security defenses. I mean, Shadowrun does a decent job and it's a D6 system, but it's a weird D6
Yeah,
system.
you use like 5 billion D6s.
Yeah, it's like a D800 system
Yeah.
disguised as a D6 system. But like Shadowrun does fine with that,
Yeah.
in fairness.
Yeah.
But in general, D6 systems, where you're rolling like primarily a D6, you just don't have enough randomness. And
Mhm.
so there are only 6 outcomes, right? So
Yeah.
like if you're doing 30 sort of fights in a combat, like a dungeon
Mhm.
crawl, 5 of those combats are going to be basically exact repeats of the
Yeah.
last one. And no, it doesn't work that way exactly, but you get my point. So that's the only thing I would say is like
Yeah.
for combat heavy stuff, you need a combat appropriate system.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else, role play wise, yeah, you can make anything work.
What do you think, Chad?
I think you should tell us below what you think because
You
Because
spaced out.
Chad wants to leave.
no,
Chad's seat.
No.
no,
He's an old man. He needs a nap.
no. I
Um,
didn't shit my pants.
we're getting less and less serious as time goes on. What about you, Sarah? What do you think?
I think any good setting probably should be agnostic to some degree.
Yeah.
I even think that in combat situations, it shouldn't really matter if you are good enough storytelling group. I think you can make anything work.
Yeah, I think if you're willing to sort of role playify your combat, then yeah, I think you
Yeah.
can make anything work.
And in the end, Chad just wants to have fun.
Well, that's the key,
Chad
right?
just wants
No,
to
no, no, no.
have fun.
We're gonna get demonetized.
We're not even monetized.
Yeah, right. We can do anything. We can snort cocaine. I actually don't know. Well, that would be a violation of
Yeah.
YouTube. Saying it, I think, is fine. Doing it would definitely violate the rules.
I don't know why you'd want to do that with a can of Coca-Cola anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, no, I actually said cocaine that time.
Oh,
I didn't even say Coke.
oh. My ears
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I think we'll wrap it up there. We're at time.
Yeah.
So including the detour to have Danielle yell at Con. So we'll ask you to subscribe, like, comment, tell everyone you ever meet, even if it's 100 years from now, because you're immortal.
Yep.
You, Ian, are
And,
immortal.
and honestly, I hope you just laughed your ass off near the end of this whole.
I hope you had fun and didn't shit your pants.
Yeah, man.
All right.
I
Cheers.
want to role play now.
Yeah, no, we should totally. Maybe tonight, maybe another day soon, but we got RPG. We'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.